voice can break the dark. A single spark ignites the heart. But if we turn when justice calls, the chains we forge will bind us all. When truth is silenced, when lies take hold, the cost is freedom, the soul grows cold. No one stands tall while another must fall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all. We're mavericks of freedom, rebels in the fight, defending every voice, defending every right. For the moment we falter, the moment we stall, we lose our own freedom when we let others fall. You can't stand free while others kneel. When justice fades, it's freedom they steal. An innocent condemned, a crime unspoken, and with it the bond of liberty is broken. No tyrant rules without our consent. Oppression thrives where silence is spent. Stand for the weak, the silence is small, or freedom will crumble for us all. We're mavericks of freedom, guardians of the light, fighting for the truth, for what is just and right. For the rights of one are the rights of all. We rise or we fall by answering the call. Even those we may oppose deserve the rights we all uphold. For if we deny them what is fair, we build our own prison in despair. The fight's not easy, it never will be, but justice for one is the key to be free. We stand as mavericks, together we strive, defending the rights that keep freedom alive. We're mavericks of freedom, rebels in the fight, upholding every truth, protecting every right. When one is oppressed, we're all in the thrall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all. So take a stand, let your courage rise. Defend the truth, don't compromise. For the soul of the world, the writing's on the wall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all.
Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Well, some people are calling it a trade war. It's just a war. Trade war? No, it's a war. It's moving fast. We don't have much time. Make no mistake, it's a war. Canada is under attack. I can't say it any more clearly than that. And no, we didn't lose today. Doug Ford didn't lose today when he suspended the 25% tariff on Ontario energy going to 3 states. It's called strategy. It's called maneuvering. It's called a battle. Right now, it seems like a game of economic ping pong. The ball going back and forth. We're all caught in the middle of stupidity. But the stupidity is coming from the White House. Make no mistake. This is unnecessary, unjustified, unwarranted, unhinged. We're going to get into that tonight. If we have time, we might go to the phones. Not sure. We get that dialing finger ready. You may have an opportunity to join in the conversation. But we also have a feature interview tonight with a young lady from Ukraine who will talk to us about her personal experience living just a short distance from all the fighting that is going on up in the northeastern part of Ukraine. Just very close to the front lines. She'll tell us what it's like to live in defiance of death. And I hope her story helps us all understand how lucky we all are and how we need to stop taking our freedom for granted. It isn't free. Sometimes there are prices to be paid. We're at that crossroads tonight. Stay with me. We have a lot to get into. It is March 11th, 2025. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Before we get started tonight, I just want to thank everyone who has been supporting this channel. Thank you to everybody who donates. We certainly need help because we don't take any government money, nor do we take any money from any foreign governments or any political parties. So I am absolutely free to share the truth. And that's what I will continue to do, because only through truth can we find freedom. And that's what our quest is here. Also, thank you to everyone who has subscribed to our channels. And I would ask that you check your subscription on our YouTube channels, because they are playing games with us and unsubscribing people en masse. So if you have a subscription, please check to make sure you're still subscribed. If you would, I'd appreciate it. And if you find that you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I hope we earn that here again tonight with the broadcast we're about to bring you. Please also consider subscribing over on our Rumble channels. And we are also running on BitChute and CloudHub and YouTube and Brighteon and a bunch of other platforms, but not Facebook. Not there. We haven't been on Facebook for a long time. Yes, the lifelong ban continues. Sometimes you just find yourself over the target and it makes people a little uncomfortable. And I saw a lot of that in the chat last night. It seems that a big portion of our viewing audience these days is comprised of people who love to hate me. And that's okay. That's fine. It just shows you who really loves Canada and who doesn't. One way or another, I'm a true Canadian patriot. So I'm going to stand up for my country. And I have to say, I respect Doug Ford and everything he has been doing, along with all of the leaders across our country, all of them. All of the leaders in power have really stepped up in one way or another to defend Canada in the face of the brought upon us by really one man leading one movement, which has focused on how shall I put this? Focus. Actually, you know what it is? He's focused on complaining. Yeah, he's a big bellyacher, a whiner. Claims that the United States has been treated so unfairly by every country around the world. I think were his words today. Yeah, the United States, which has no country has had it so good as the United States since World War II. Oh, sure, with their position of dominance came great responsibility, but the United States, the dominant economic and military power globally since World War II, enjoying opulence, prosperity at levels unprecedented in human history. Oh, yeah, but you've been treated so unfairly, Donald. Always the poor little victim. Man, oh man, no wonder you're losing the support of even Republicans in your own country. And you've lost the support of massive numbers of Canadians who previously supported you. And no surprise. But there are those who are so wrapped up, I'd say even indoctrinated, that they refuse to see and acknowledge that they're being punched in the face, disrespected, treated like complete crap because they seem to love the abuse, because they have no self-respect, or maybe they're just stupid. That could be it. Or they're afraid to stand up for themselves, but I have too much self-respect for that. I'm going to stand up for myself and for my country, and so has Doug Ford. And today, he did what he had to do when he said that he was going to back off on the 25% tariff on electricity from Ontario going into 3 states, but he got the reaction that he needed by the end of the day from Trump. Make no mistake, this war is far from over. Here's Doug Ford. Let's pick him up in Toronto. He's talking about this, explaining what he had to do today. Here we go.
Just a little while ago, I had an opportunity to speak to Secretary Lutnick. And Secretary Lutnick has sent out an olive branch to us to come down and immediately meet with him, meet with the whole trade administration, and discuss the future. Rather than waiting till April the 2nd, threats going back and forth, tit for tat, I've agreed to suspend temporarily, and we always have that tool in our toolkit, until we sit down over the next day or two. I'll be heading down to Washington along with Dominic LeBlanc, and we'll have a good discussion. You know, and with any negotiation that we have, there's a point that both parties are heated and the temperature needs to come down. And I thought this was the right decision. They understand how serious we are about the electricity and the tariffs. And rather than going back and forth and having threats to each other, we have both agreed, let cooler heads prevail. We need to sit down and move this forward. This is a massive, massive deal. The USMCA, which the federal government will be leading the charge. I'll be sitting down with all our premiers tomorrow as well and discussing this and their issues as well. So we're going to go down there and we're going to go down there with confidence. We're going to go down there with strength. And again, hopefully we can move this forward. I feel as a province, and I only speak for the province of Ontario, I want to reaffirm I do not speak for any other premiers. Everyone's very patriotic and we have the best premiers I've ever seen. But we're going to be talking about the USMCA moving forward. The worst thing that could happen is wait and let this drag out until April the 2nd. So we're going to move forward and have a very good conversation with Secretary Lutnick and the whole trade team, as he said, and hopefully we can move this forward because it doesn't benefit anyone, as I told him, no matter if it's the auto sector or any other sector here in Canada and specifically Ontario. And all I mentioned, assembly lines will shut down in the U.S. and Canada. The stock market is tumbling over $4 trillion. Consumer confidence has went down. I said it's absolute chaos out there right now. We need to move forward jointly. I emphasized how Canadians love Americans, and I know Americans love Canadians, but going back and forth with each other, it just hurts both countries. So I want to thank Secretary Lutnick for reaching out, putting that olive branch, and I've been in business a number of years, a lot of negotiations, and part of the last negotiation, when someone does that, you have to respect that person for putting out that olive branch, and I'm going to make sure we go down there and have a very good but strong and confident conversation.
So is Mr.
Yes.
Lutnick then are they going to hold off on their steel and aluminum tariffs? Is that your understanding? What's the olive branch other than the invitation to DC?
Well, he has to bounce it off the president, but I'm pretty confident he will pull back. And I'm not speaking for them. I'm not speaking for the president. But if he continues with the aluminum and the steel, I just got off the phone with Minister LeBlanc. They will respond dollar for dollar, tariff for tariff. And again, Minister LeBlanc will be joining me, and hopefully Ambassador Hillman, if she's free, will join me as well. But we'll have a strong delegation. But every negotiation starts sitting at the table. And when someone invites you to their home, said, let's sit down at the table, I'm not going to refuse that.
Premier, you're meeting with Prime Minister Designate Carney tomorrow.
Yes, I am.
What is he part of this discussion as well? Could you just fill us in on your meeting tomorrow and what's up with that?
Dominic LeBlanc is informing the new Prime Minister, elect Prime Minister Carney, and he'll have a conversation with the Prime Minister.
Premier, the White House Press Secretary mentioned you specifically, said the surcharge was egregious. What did you make of that? Is that factoring into your decision to pull back here?
No, it's not. But in negotiations, you can't keep ratcheting it up on both sides, because the only people that get hurt, Richard, are the Canadian population, Ontario in specific, to be specific, and the American people. I had a conversation with all three governors, Governor Walz just a little while ago, about a week or so ago, but I did speak to Governor Whitmer over the weekend. I spoke to her again this morning, and also Governor Hochul as well.
Trump directly when you head down to Washington?
I'm not too sure. All I know is I'm meeting with the Secretary Lutnick, and his entire team down there as well. And again, by no means are we just going to roll over, because we don't roll over to anyone. What we are going to do is have a constructive conversation moving forward. As I reminded the Secretary, you know, we're the closest allies, closest friends, and we need to get back to the table to make sure that we build an AMCAN fortress around the world. I told him we are not the problem, China's the problem, and we look forward to speaking with Secretary Lutnick. I'm sorry.
Your moves on electricity.
Yes.
Did you have the okay from the feds, or was this you kind of going on your own?
Well, I think I've been pretty transparent with the federal government and everyone else. I've been mentioning it for probably the last 3 or 4 weeks, and then we had to make a move. Did it catch their attention? That's an understatement. They caught their attention. But I'm not out, and I've said it publicly, I'm not out to hurt the American people. I told the governors I'm not out to hurt them. I apologize that we have to even do this. We have to get to this point. But sometimes you have to play your cards, and this is one of the cards that we played. And hopefully we're going to have a very good, constructive conversation with the Secretary when we get down there. But my goal in any discussion, any negotiation, be it here or in business or in the last agreement that we had, is let's cool everyone down. Cooler heads have to prevail, and we need to sit down and have a very productive conversation. And I truly feel it was the right decision to move forward and bring Minister LeBlanc down, along with the ambassador. If she's free, I have to reach out to her. Folks, this has been moving at rocket speed right now, going back and forth, and we had to make a decision. So I made that decision.
What else would she be doing on this file?
Well, I'm just saying, I have to reach out to her. This is going extremely fast. My number one priority was to talk to the people of Ontario, and I have to reach out to the ambassador. But she's done an incredible job, by the way. I want to thank Ambassador Hillman for all the work she's been doing behind the scenes as well.
Can you say what called who today?
Yes, Secretary Lutnick called me.
Was it
This will
because
be the last question.
do you think that the CNN push, CNBC, MSNBC, you've been doing a big media blitz on American channels?
Yeah.
Clearly, Secretary Lutnick is noticing that. Do you think that is this vindicating your aggressive, hawkish kind of strategy rather than trying to be an appeaser like some other premiers?
Well, first of all, thank you for that question, Robert. What I'm doing the American media for is to inform the American people. You know, I saw a poll that came out the other day, just recently. It's 67% of Americans disagree with President Trump attacking Canada. So the more all of us, all premiers, all CEOs of businesses go out there and inform the American people. This isn't just going to hurt Canada, and it will hurt Canada and Ontario. It's going to hurt the U.S., and it's going to hurt badly. We're already seeing inflation go up in the U.S., and that's not going to be good. I'll tell you, I know the Americans fairly well. They're loving, caring people, and as soon as costs start going up, inflation, plants start shutting down, you can't attack your number one customer, Canada, and not expect a response. And we responded, and they came back, and I'm a business person. I want to sit down and negotiate this and stop the bleeding. As we're going at each other, China's sitting back laughing, building their critical mineral arsenal, and you know, the words Chinese president said the other day should be concerning for the whole world, when he said we aren't ready just for an economic war, any type of war. That's concerning, to say the least.
That was the last question. Do you think the president was watching you?
Are you concerned that suspending the surcharge that you put on electricity will be considered a win by Trump?
No, I wouldn't call it a win whatsoever, because we still have it in our toolkit that we can use at any given time. Again, I mentioned to the governors, I apologize, we have to go to this extent. But remember, folks, we never started this war. President Trump started this economic war against Canada. It was unprovoked. I truly believed that we'd move forward and it would grow both economies, would create more jobs, more economic prosperity. Well, this has gone the other way. The economy right now, I'm concerned about it. And if a recession does happen, it's a self-made recession by one person and one person only. So I just want to move forward. I'm asking for the people of Ontario and Canada's support. I want to thank them for the thousands of messages I'm getting, even people that disagree with me. As some people say, I disagree with you 99%, but you're doing a great job. Keep going. I need everyone's support as Team Canada as we move forward, because this, these negotiations are going to be the toughest we've ever had.
Thank you.
Yes.
No deal. What changed?
I apologize.
You said zero tariffs before, well, there was no deal. This is a pause.
It's called,
What's changed?
well, it's called an olive branch. When you're negotiating with someone, they call you and they hand over an olive branch. The worst thing I think I could do as Premier of Ontario is ignore them and hang up the phone on them. I don't operate that way. I believe when someone's putting out an olive branch, we sit back, we accept it graciously, by the way, thank them for that opportunity, and let's start moving. Because if we don't, just imagine, all of you folks have seen how President Trump has changed things on a daily basis. I don't want to wait till April the 2nd. God only knows what would happen from now till April the 2nd. We need to get to the table as quickly as possible.
Thank you. That was the last question.
Well, Mr. Carney, he's making the transition. Make no mistake about it. This is led by the Prime Minister-elect Carney and along with Minister LeBlanc. They'll be leading the charge there, but Ontario plays a massive role, no matter if it's the auto sector, the tech sector, the agricultural sector, the manufacturing sector. We'd be the third largest trading partner in the world to the United States if we were a standalone country. By the way, I'd never recommend that in a million years, but if we were a standalone country, we'd be the third largest trading partner. We're a very, very important trading partner to the United States, and many CEOs. I had an opportunity to speak to a group of CEOs at Yale today on conference call. I think the Americans understand we are not their enemies. We love the Americans. It's one person that we need to deal with.
Thank you. That was the last question.
I'm sorry.
Just the last question, 4 questions ago.
It was very constructive. I've talked to Secretary Lutnick before, and make no mistake about it. He's a very, very smart businessman, a shrewd negotiator. And, you know, like him or not, don't underestimate President Trump. He's a smart business person. But in saying that, we have very smart business people here in Canada and in Ontario as well. It's in our both best interest to sit down and negotiate. That's you know, take one of President Trump's titles of his books. That's The Art of the Deal. Let's sit down and negotiate. We'll negotiate hard. They know we aren't fooling around. We're going to negotiate hard, but we want a fair deal. We want a fair and free trade deal with our closest friends and allies. I'll take one more, then I got to get going.
Where are you meeting Mark Carney tomorrow? Where are you meeting him?
Oh, why do you ask me that? I can't. Well, anyways, I can't answer. I can't answer that.
That was the last question.
I can't. I'm sorry, guys. I can't. I'm sure you'll find out. I know you will. Oh, I'm not saying.
Okay, and as much as Ford is saying he wants to negotiate, it isn't about negotiating. It isn't. Hang on, I need to stop this audio. Okay. It isn't about anything that people think it's about, it seems. It isn't about the tariffs. It isn't about the tariffs are being used as a tool to get something that he wants, and nobody has figured out what he wants. because the things that he says it's not about that. It's not about the fentanyl. It's not about the border. It's sort of about, no, it's not about any of that. It's not about the immigration. It's not about border security. It isn't about the banking regulations. It isn't about any of the industries per se that he's saying it's about. Not really, not in the overall scheme of things. This is what it's about. He wants control of Canada. If he can't annex the entire country outright and make it part of the United States as the 51st state, then he wants to control it, which will amount to the same thing by installing a government that is basically a puppet government of the United States. That's what he wants. A government that is in alignment ideologically with him. And a government that will also work with him to make sure that his rich oligarch friends are enriched even further in what will amount to complete realignment of the world geopolitically. It's part of a much grander plan. That's why Canada is not the only country under attack. Mexico, China, not really. China's a veiled thing. He's not really at war with China. He's telling you that. But he's not really at war with China. In fact, you'll find that over time, he may be more aligned with China than anybody realizes because he's so aligned with Russia. And Russia is very closely aligned with China now. It's the way it is. That's why we're having so much trouble. That's why our leaders are having so much trouble. But we're going to be okay. You have to stand up for yourself. Because if you do nothing, that's the same as doing something. And we are vulnerable. If we do nothing, Trump will just use the 25% across the board tariffs to take our industries and leave us impoverished, to starve us to death over time. And then either we capitulate at that point and cave in, bend the knee, give up our sovereignty and our freedom, our right to self-determination. Or we starve and become a third world country. At least that's what he thinks. But there are options. It just takes time. The question is, do we have enough time to make those changes, to adjust our trading practices, diversify our customer base, do more domestically to become self-sufficient? I don't know. Things are moving so fast, and Trump is being so aggressive. I don't know if we have enough time to survive this. But I'll tell you, not going to get me that easy. I've got too much self-pride, and there's an information warfare element to all of this. Propaganda, outright lies, exaggerations, bombastic rhetoric, and that's why I'm here and have been for the past 3+ years, whatever. Yeah, 3 years, over 4 years, whatever. Been sitting in this chair night after night after night after night. I told you guys a long time ago that Canada was in play. I said 2 years. I've lost track of time. It was even further back than that. As I sit and really reflect on it, I've been warning everyone that Canada is in play. I couldn't really tell exactly where it's coming from. I wasn't sure if it was coming from Russia, from China, and I didn't want to believe it was the United States, but it isn't the United States. It is Trump. It is MAGA. It's that political movement targeting Canada. And is it Russia? It's the same damn thing. It's Trump, Russia. It's the same thing. whether it's direct or loosely connected. It's not even loosely connected. It's ideologically joined at the hip. But here's the thing that the MAGA people are getting wrong. As much as the MAGA movement is in alignment ideologically with what Russia is doing, make no mistake, Vladimir Putin wants to weaken the West. He's Ameriphobic. He's afraid of the United States. He's afraid of Western society. He sees the West as the source of liberalism and progressive woke ideas. And regardless of who is in the White House, who sits in Parliament, he sees Western society, liberal democracies, as an existential threat to Russia, because it's in direct opposition to this new political ideology and worldview that has emerged from Russia, that is now also very present in in the conservative political movements in not just America, but really around the world, and especially in Europe. And there is a global movement afoot, an international movement anyway, afoot to install conservative leaders ideologically in alignment with what Russia has adopted and with that worldview, which is also in alignment with what is coming out of the White House and from one man, Donald J. Trump. And I'm not comfortable with it because it's authoritarian. It doesn't respect the sovereignty of nations. It certainly doesn't respect freedom. And yet, so many people who are devoted to freedom through freedom movements think that that is what you're going to get on the other side of this. And I'm telling you, it is a trap. You are going to get the opposite, because it is a collectivist ideology. Beware. Also, beware the peaceniks, those calling for peace. I just want peace. I just want peace. The peaceniks, for decades, marching through the streets calling for peace. Many of them, if not most of them, don't really want peace. They want surrender. They want you to surrender. They want you disarmed, both in terms of actual arms. They don't want you armed because you'd be a threat, but mostly they want you disarmed mentally. That's what I was referring to when I said there's an information warfare element to all of this. That's why I'm in this chair. That's what was coming out of the White House press briefing again today. Part of another shot fired in the information war space from Trump's new press secretary. All this designed to it's setting up everyone for a mindset where we will be in Canada blaming our government for any hardship economically that comes from this trade war that really did start in the White House with Donald J. Trump. His fault, his tariff war, he started it, but they're setting you up, me up, everybody up, Canadian society up, even Americans up, to believe that it's our own fault, that it's Canadians who did this. Reverse logic, no logic actually, it's upside down, inside out, weird mind control, wacko stuff. It's not our fault. We did not start this. I'm going to play you this clip from the press briefing today, and I'll explain why. What she says seems to make sense, but it's only because she's not telling you the truth, because she's only telling you a half-truth when it comes to, specifically in this case, Canada. Take it away, half-truther.
Our steel and aluminum industries have actually applauded these tariffs because, again, they know it's going to grow their industry here. It's going to allow them to export more steel that is made right here in the United States with American workers.
Egregious and insulting are your words here, but that's what many Canadian leaders have said about the actions President Trump has taken toward Canada. And what do you think the timeline is for speaking to Mr. Carney? Because normally a sitting president speaks to a close ally very quickly when there's new leadership.
Well, the president is, again, responding to the fact that Canada has been ripping off the United States of America and hardworking Americans for decades. If you look at the rates of tariffs across the board that Canadians have been imposing on the American people and our workers here, it is egregious. In fact, I have a handy-dandy chart here that shows not just Canada, but the rate of tariffs across the board. If you look at Canada, since you brought it up, American cheese and butter, nearly 300% tariff. You look at India, 150%.
Okay, we'll stop there because she moves on to other countries. The dairy industry and the dairy tariff. Yes, true, but not the whole story. It's a half-truth. It's not egregious. We're not ripping off the United States. Why, Rick? Why? I'll tell you why. Because we don't dump dairy product into the United States. We've carved out. Now, you can make an argument that we should open up the dairy industry to competition in exchange for access to the U.S. market, and that you could make an argument that maybe we could adjust our industry and our practices to compete with the U.S., but we, as Canadians, made a choice through elections and the democratic process to support the dairy farmers in Canada in order to achieve food security, food sovereignty, and other farming industries too, but dairy in particular is, the major sore point with some people. But the reason it isn't us ripping off the United States is because all we've done is we've carved out a portion of our economy, dairy farming, and in order to protect farmers, it's a protectionist move. It's not an aggressive move on the United States because we don't export much dairy to the United States. In fact, we have self-imposed regulations and production caps and rules about exports that prevent farmers from dumping product into the United States. We have production quotas, yes, to maintain certain price levels within the Canadian market. Farmers are only allowed to produce so much. They're given quotas, and then beyond that, they have to stop producing. If they produce more than that, a lot of it gets dumped right down the drain so that it doesn't go onto the market and push prices down. And by doing that, you make sure that farmers make a living wage and a profit so that it's an attractive industry to be in and they can survive. If you open the market up to foreign competition and take all of the tariffs away, and the reason they're so high is to make sure that foreign big corporate industrial farm operations can't produce massive amounts of dairy product and dump it into the Canadian market and put our farmers out of business, where we have different kind of production standards. We don't have, we have more regulations on the use of like hormones to make the cows produce a lot of milk, which some people think might be a health issue. We have a lot of different regulations in place. So we put the heavy tariffs on. Now, Trump would have a point in arguing that Canada is ripping off the United States if we were then in turn using a tariff to protect the Canadian market and then dumping massive amounts of product subsidized by the Canadian government into the U.S. market below market value or at prices that are way below what U.S. farmers can produce it at, because then that would be an aggressive trade practice. But what we're doing is just pulling back. We've carved that out. We're keeping it domestic, and we're saying, no, we don't want other countries bringing too much of that product in here. And we really don't export much to the U.S. I believe it was only about $400 million in total last year, which only makes up about 1% of the entire supply of dairy in the United States, like 1% from Canada. Now that's the reality. That's the whole story. So we're not ripping off the United States. We're just saying, no, we don't want a lot of imported milk into the Canadian market. There are other agricultural products that we do similar things to in terms of high tariffs. And again, that is also to make sure that we have food sovereignty, food security. It's a national security issue for Canada. And I think that our federal government might consider framing it in that way and actually putting that down in writing so that we can justify that on a national security basis as well, just as Trump is tonight with this new executive order that he signed to declare a national energy emergency in the 3 states where Ontario was going to impose this 25% tariff or tax. So for him, it's a national emergency. But also, Trump's actions tonight support exactly what I'm saying. Because what he's really doing is protecting U.S. industries that are not competitive with tariffs. Case in point, steel. And I've pointed this out before. The U.S. steel industry is not competitive. They haven't invested enough in new technologies and upgrades to their production facilities in the United States. As a result, the steel they produce is of lower quality, and it's produced at a much higher cost than what we do in Canada, than what we produce here. They can't compete, not just with us, but from steel from other countries, including China, which is a much bigger threat in a lot of ways than Canada is on the steel question. But they can't compete. So they need to either invest or open their market up in order to get price competitive steel at world market prices. But what he's doing is just showing, what he's doing is aggressive tariffs. He's imposing massive tariffs to protect a failing industry and many failing industries. And what he's doing is he's trying to rip off Canada by stealing our auto industry. He wants to kill it, destroy it. If we do nothing, he'll just leave the 25% tariffs in place, and it won't take long. Those auto plants, all of them in Canada, will be shut down in a matter of days, if weeks, maybe just days. And then those shutdowns won't end. Those plants will move to the United States because the cost is out of line, especially for the parts industry. The assembly facilities, they might last a little bit longer. This adds a lot of cost on the U.S. side, but they won't keep that up. They'll shut these plants down. Everything's gone. It will go to the United States over time. That's why whatever we do, we need to do it quickly, because time is not on our side. Because they are large over there, so we need to move very quickly over here as well. And make no mistake, this is not going to end. It's not going to stop. Because Trump is focused not just on the auto industry and taking that, and he's not focused just on Alberta and taking that province, all the resources, all the oil out there. And if he can't get the whole country, he's going to focus on that. He's focused on trying to control this entire country. That's what the ultimate goal is here. That's what we have to resist ultimately. And who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? I'm not sure. It's very hard to tell. But I say beware those who say do nothing. Because those are either people who don't understand or they are malicious actors. They're not acting in the best interests of Canada. Doing nothing just allows Trump over time, and it won't take that long, but it just allows Trump to take what he wants. And if you do nothing, he will take everything. He may do that anyway. But I think that we can survive, and this is a country that is worth saving, because I honestly don't want to be part of what he has turned America into. Not with him at the helm, not with him doing this, because he's assaulting every country around the world. And this is authoritarianism. Even though he's saying that he has embraced free speech, that he's eliminated censorship. It's not true. You see that there's a chilling effect even on free speech in the United States right now. You see that he is exerting this fascistic control even over the richest of the people in the country, making them all bend the knee, kiss the ring, express their loyalty to the new king. Zuckerberg, Musk, Bezos, all kneeling at the altar of Trump. The one exception may be Musk, and that's because he has purchased his role in the new government for $270 million. Paying the price, though, to some degree, through the tanking of Tesla stock. Let's go to the CBS News report from today, just to get a feel for how the mainstream media, legacy media on the U.S. side is reacting to all of this tonight.
We want to take you now to the White House, where moments ago, President Trump spoke about the economic uncertainty caused by a growing trade war with Canada. Let's listen.
Uncertainty about work ahead.
Well, I think they're going to do great. I think our country had to do this. We had to go and do this. They've taken away, other countries have taken away our business. They've taken away our jobs. I did it initially very strongly against, as you know, China and some others in the first term. And it was a very successful term. We had no inflation. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. And then we had COVID, which we had to straighten out. So I didn't want to be doing anything with respect to other countries at that time. And we did a great job with it. We handed the stock market over. It was higher than it ever was. And think of that, higher than it ever was to that point before. And nobody thought that was even possible. We did a great job. But we had the greatest economy in history. This economy, in my opinion, is going to blow it away. But what I have to do is I have to get the workers back. I have to get the factories open. We have 90,000 factories and plants are closed from what you had just prior to NAFTA, which is not very long ago. 90,000, think of it, 90,000 factories and plants are closed from what it was, and it's just not right. So, and we gave it away. Presidents before me gave it away, and I could name every one of them, but they gave it away, and we're taking it back. We're taking our jobs back. And one of the things I'll say, by the way, speaking of Tesla, he manufactures more cars. I mean, he opened this incredible plant, one of the largest plants in the world, in Texas. Could you talk about that, Illa?
Yeah, it's worth noting that the Tesla cars have the most U.S. content of any cars on the market, so they're the most American-made. We have the biggest factory.
CBS News White House reporter.
Okay, enough of that. Let's go back to this, actually. We'll
forth
picked up a little
today,
bit.
prior to today, regarding tariffs in the U.S., particularly U.S. and Canada. Catch us up to speed.
Yeah, it's good to be with you again. We just heard from the president there where he said he's considering cutting back on the 50% tariffs he announced earlier today that would be on Canadian exports as far as electricity.
And he has.
Let's back up a little bit here and just walk you through all of this. We heard from Ontario's premier, which is essentially their governor, Ford. He had said that there's going to be a 25% tariff on electricity going to 3 U.S. states. That would be New York, Michigan, and Minnesota. As a result, Trump then said starting tomorrow, March 12th, there would be an increase in tariffs from 25% to 50% on Canadian steel and aluminum that come into the U.S. It's important to note Canada is a huge supplier of steel in the U.S., so this would certainly ratchet up this trade war a little bit. Trump was asked about this a short while ago, and he said he's considering cutting back on that 50% tariff that he actually announced. He said he's looking at it and he could make a different decision. Also notable, we had heard from Premier Ford and Secretary Lutnick about an hour ago where they said, announcing this deal essentially between the two leaders regarding tariffs, that because there would be a meeting in D.C. between Ford and Lutnick, that Ford said Ontario would not put this 25% tariff on electricity. Of that meeting, Trump said Ford, rather, he called him a strong man in Canada. He called Trump and said he's not going to do that regarding the electricity. And Trump said he respects that. So clearly some conversation between the two leaders today, specifically on this issue of tariffs and the tit for tat we've heard there. But ultimately, Trump says in the latest decision on this back and forth and tit for tat that there will not be, or he's reconsidering rather, this tariff he planned to put on tomorrow on steel and aluminum imports.
So obviously, the president watches the market. We've been watching the markets. Things did not close well yesterday. All three markets down slightly today, so there was a bit of a rebound. But what is the administration saying about the markets and the economy, really as a result of investor reaction to these policies?
Yeah, the White House is saying there's a divergence between essentially what they're seeing on the short term with these animal spirit markets, is what they're calling them, the bear and bull market, related to market rallies, market sell-offs. They said there's a divergence between that and what they actually hear from business leaders. And they say business leaders tell them they're excited to be investing in America and investing back in the U.S. because of Trump's pro-business policies, his impending tax cuts that they're hoping Congress will agree to and enact when they eventually take up that bill, perhaps later in the spring, early summer. And because of that, the White House is predicting that even though Q1, we're going to see some economic blips, some data related to inflation and high prices that are certainly going to make consumers feel wary. Come Q2, they're hoping there will be an economic boom based off of Trump's tax cuts and pro-business policy. It's important to note, though, this isn't the last time we're going to hear from Trump today. He's going to head over to a business roundtable with the business leaders, top 100 business leaders in the country, and talk to them about his economic plans and tariffs and the ongoing economic stress that we've been seeing across the country. These are people, though, who lost a ton of money yesterday, a little bit today. It seems like all the markets closed down, even though they just closed. And so this is going to be an interesting conversation that he's going to have, where he's going to have to kind of walk this fine line with the business roundtable and these leaders who are against this tariff plan and but are pro his tax cuts and pro business. We know a lot of these leaders supported him during the re-election campaign of 2024. So this will be a very interesting conversation he's going to have in a short little bit. Obviously, with the markets hanging over, it does make his tariff plan a little bit more difficult, and people are a little bit more wary of it. So we'll be interested to see what he says.
Olivia Renaud.
Okay. Well, if you think that Donald Trump is a free trade kind of guy, this is not free trade. And this is also not about freedom, and it is not about cooperation. And this is why the United States is on its way to a recession. In fact, we may be on our way to a global recession, if not a depression, as because of this. And yes, Wall Street did take a beating today as stocks closed lower, extending a steep sell-off that's gripping financial markets. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped nearly 900 points today, while the tech-heavy NASDAQ plunged 4%. That's massive, marking its worst day since 2022. The S&P 500 also slid, falling below its 200-day moving average, a key level watched by investors for the first time in over a year. So why? Well, it's a perfect storm, really, of uncertainty, thanks to Donald J. Trump and his unpredictable tariff policies. Yes, it's all that, all the tariff stuff at the forefront after weeks of back and forth tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China. It's all shaking investor confidence. And just yesterday, Trump declined to rule out a recession himself, saying this during a weekend interview, saying the economy might face, quote, a period of transition as he pushes to rebuild American manufacturing at the expense of all of his trading partners, who he says are ripping off America. But even on the energy question, if America is so powerful and he really needs nothing that we have, then why even bother with the threat of, well, of a 50% tariff on aluminum and steel in order to circumvent the 25% tax/tariff on electricity? Why don't you produce it yourself? Because they can't. The same goes for lumber, softwood lumber, coming out of Canada. In fact, there's a little video that's going viral. I'm going to run this for you. It's all about the lumber. It's about whether or not somebody's got wood. And maybe Trump is just envious of Canadian wood. You know what I'm saying? The wood. You got wood?
Why should we be buying lumber from other countries?
Because that's where the trees are. These different colors are different kind of trees, and what you need to know is that this is the kind of trees that we like to build houses out of. We can also use these ones, but they're not as good. And as you can see, Canada's just trees galore. So I guess we could cut down our national forests to make 2x4s, but unfortunately we would actually run out pretty quick. Then we'd have to wait another decade for those trees to grow again so we can harvest them again. And another interesting thing about trees is that the farther north they grow, the slower they grow. And the slower they grow, the harder the wood is, which makes it better. The wood is also better the longer you let the trees grow before you cut them, and these are all uncut forests. When it comes down to it, Canada's wood is just longer, harder, thicker, and uncut.
Oh, yeah, it's Donald. Our wood up here in Canada, we got wood, man. And it's longer, it's harder, way harder. And we're uncut. What are you?
And they are eager to let us have it. We should just let their wood come all over America. Because in reality...
He wants us to let our wood... I'm not even going to say it. He said it, not me. What he wants our wood to do to America. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I didn't even vet this thing beforehand, but it is what it is. He said what he said.
We just don't have enough forests in the United States to keep up with the demand for construction. In fact, this is a post that I made in 2017. Remember back in April when Trump got mad about Canadian lumber replacing American lumber? Well, it turns out that a 30% duty on Canadian goods doesn't mean that America produces more lumber. The lumber we used to get from Canada, we are now getting from Europe and Asia, and it costs a lot more. Notably, lumber imports from Russia have increased by over 40%. This lumber comes from forced labor camps in Siberia, where Russia has purchased workers from the North Korean government. So let's break this down. We hurt our relationship with Canada so that we can support the oppression of North Koreans for the benefit of Russia and North Korea's governments, all so that Americans can pay more for soft lumber, and it will cost Americans wanting to build a house 20% more than it would have cost last year. How does that put America first? You know how we have a housing shortage and construction costs have gotten outrageous since 2017? The houses being built now are not as sturdy as houses that were being built 10 years ago, and they cost more. Asking why we get lumber from Canada is like asking why we get coffee from Ethiopia or why we get pineapples from South America. That's just where they come from.
Donald Trump is he's jealous of our wood. You hear that, gentlemen and ladies? Trump is jealous of our wood because it's longer, it's harder, and it's uncut.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Now, on the other side of the ocean, China has targeted Canada as well. I know, with pretty serious tariffs on some agricultural products and aquatic products. That would be like seafood, things of that nature. And that needs more study and more consideration. There are some, including, I believe, the Premier of British Columbia, David Eby, calling on the federal government to rethink the approach that we're taking to China on the tariffs and maybe pull back on what we have done. And in that case, there might actually be some justification in dialing back what we have done there, because what Canada did, especially with the electric vehicles, is we imposed tariffs in alignment with the United States to support the previous Biden administration position on imposing tariffs on Chinese-produced electric vehicles, which has been kept by the Trump administration, followed with even more tariffs on China. And our approach was in alignment with that, to try to protect our auto industry here, the battery plants, the electric vehicle industry specifically, from unfair Chinese competition because of the massive levels of government subsidies that China has been using to build its electric vehicle market and produce so many, to create overcapacity, to flood the world market with electric vehicles, to dominate in that space. But in light of everything that is going on now with Trump, maybe our loyalty shouldn't be so, so fierce with the United States. Now, I would say Canada, it's not just time for elbows up. Maybe it's time for gloves off, because we don't have much time. But we need to consider all of this very carefully and make sure that we're looking at things on all levels, not just the economics behind it, but the politics. Because this isn't just about trade, as I said at the beginning of the show. It's about everything going on around the world. And don't forget that even though Trump backed off today, he actually did. He dialed it back because of Doug Ford's 25% tariff tax on energy. He put the 50% off. Now it is off. We're back to the 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum, in alignment with all the other products that Trump is tariffing. So we're really just back to where we were just a few days ago. And did Doug Ford cave? No. Because this accelerated talks. This got Doug Ford and other Canadian leaders a seat at a table and a chance to start talking about this again. So at least there's that. So we got something out of it. We got talks. And I know, and respectfully to our friend Maxime Bernier, who was on the program last night, and he said that what Trump really wants is to get back to the table right away and start talking about the USMCA, or the new version of the North American Free Trade Agreement. And yeah, I think there is that aspect to it. But the suggestion last night was that the Canadian government is resisting that in some way, or not doing it, and that is what Trump really wants. And the reality is the government has said that they want to get to the table to start talking about this as quickly as possible as well. And Melanie Joly, Foreign Affairs Minister, has stated that very clearly on many occasions over the past few weeks. So Canada's prepared to go to the table at any time. Really, at any time. And they are asking for it, as Ford has here. And this is getting that process kick-started again. So I would say, yes, it's happening, and that's positive. So this is not a loss. This is actually okay, and it's not over. But keep that in mind, it's not over. Not by a long shot. We've barely even begun. Canada also needs to follow through with complaints to the World Trade Organization, because the other thing is Trump is not honoring the USMCA, an agreement that he negotiated and he signed with Canada. And he's not honoring that. He's using national security as a pretext, an excuse for doing all the things that he's doing. But that's not going to hold up when placed under scrutiny through a review, a World Trade Organization review of that trade deal. So I hope we can pursue that. The problem here is that because this isn't really about trade, Trump won't care. And I don't know if any enforcement mechanism can be brought to bear here that will really make Trump back off on all of this, even if he is found to be in violation of the WTO, in violation of the trade agreement, and then if you get a ruling favorable to the Canadian position on that. I don't know how you enforce it when you're dealing with a superpower who really has immunity in many respects to even rulings from the International Criminal Court and the ICJ. Who's going to make them do anything? They got nukes. But that's okay. There are a lot of tools in the toolkit that will allow us to stand up and assert ourselves and assert our sovereignty and make Trump realize again that we are a real country. That's really at the heart of all of this, isn't it? Now, also tonight, we're seeing that the U.S. has resumed military aid and intelligence sharing to Ukraine. Ukraine is saying it is open to a 30-day ceasefire with Russia. We still don't know what Russia's position is on this tonight. We've got these talks that have been taking place in Saudi Arabia. This comes out of that. The administration's decision marks a sharp shift from only a week ago. It was just a week ago that we saw the U.S. impose measures to push Zelensky to do whatever the heck it is that Trump wants him to do, say that he wanted him to enter into these talks to end the war with Russia and kind of bend the knee to whatever it is that Trump is trying to get out of him. I just don't know if this is quite the correct way to frame all of this, because I think Ukraine does want peace. All Ukraine is saying is, yeah, we can have peace, but it has to be peace. It can't be a ceasefire where we keep getting shot at. And if there is peace and Russia attacks us again, what are you going to do to enforce the peace? What mechanism is in place to make sure that the peace is sustainable? And so you get a 30-day ceasefire, fine. And then maybe that can lead to further negotiations for peace, fine. But if Russia's not going to allow peacekeeping forces in there, how do you enforce that? And it's soon, if they shoot again, then what does the ceasefire off, and what does that look like? I don't know. But hey, I'm all for peace too. But as I said earlier in the program, beware of the peaceniks and the people saying they just want peace, because often it's disingenuous, a falsehood, a facade. People marching through the streets calling for peace are often people who are in a position of weakness because the United States or Western countries, NATO countries, are strong. And they would like to undermine our values, undermine our freedom, take it away from us. And so what a lot of these peaceniks are really about is working through protest, through information warfare, to convince us to disarm unilaterally. Think about that. Do you ever see the people marching through the streets calling for disarmament and the destruction of NATO? Do you ever see them saying, we also want Russia to give up its nukes? Do you hear them saying, we want Russia to give up its alliances with other powers and pull out of this country or that country? No, Russia seems to get a pass from the people who really have other motives. And so when I hear people saying, oh, we just want peace in Ukraine. No, a lot of them, it's not so much that they want peace. They just want Russia to win. So that at the end of it, you get peace. Because you see, you can get peace if one side just gives up. And then the dominant force comes in, occupies, oppresses, maybe even just kills all the people. That would be one way to get peace. But if you know, a more difficult piece is getting both sides to the table to negotiate something that's fair. And I guess you could also get peace if one big superpower came up against a smaller power, and then another superpower came in, and instead of helping the little guy, the second big superpower comes in and holds the little guy down, so that the other big superpower can really wail away and punch the little guy in the face and make him just give up. Quit. F your freedom. F your country. We just want peace. Stop fighting back. Give it up. You don't have a real country anyway. In fact, by the time we're done, for sure you're not going to have one. We'll both make sure of that. Screw you. That's really the position Trump took earlier this week when he pulled the intelligence and left people vulnerable to attack. And yet overnight, what did we see from Ukraine? A country that we're told has already lost the war. How many times have I heard that BS? They haven't lost the war. Not even frickin' close. They're resilient. They keep on fighting back. They're fighting for their future, their country, their children, their grandchildren, for generations to come, to preserve the culture. That's really what's going on. We have this feature interview coming up with a young lady right here who will explain to us what it's like to live in Ukraine in the face of this war, regardless of what side you're on this issue. This is real. She's on the ground. She's going to tell you firsthand. She lives right up there, about 20 kilometers from the front lines. Her family is directly involved in the war. When the missiles start to fly, as they did over the past weekend, they had limited ability, because of what Trump did, to detect and intercept, leaving cities open to attack, and many civilians died in missile attacks this week or over the weekend. She's going to tell us what it's like to live there on the other side of this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so this is an interview that I did earlier today. It is recorded, but this is the full-length unedited interview with Yaryna, and we're using only her first name because I do have some concerns, and I don't know, maybe this will be addressed at a later time, but just her first name tonight, because she is concerned that if there is a situation where Ukraine loses more ground or loses this war, the Russians will come in and kill her as peace is declared. This is Yaryna. Yaryna, thank you for joining us on the program today. First of all, can you just introduce yourself, give people your name so that it's properly pronounced, and tell people where you are?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. My name is Yaryna, Yaryna in Ukrainian, but I'm 25 years old, soon to be 26. I currently live in Ukraine, Donetsk region, and just trying to live my life actually during all of this stuff, during the war.
And it's been increasingly difficult in the last week because Donald Trump cut intelligence services to the Ukrainian forces, leaving everyone very vulnerable to attack, and Russia has increased those attacks. Can you talk a little bit about that? How has that had an impact?
Actually, living here where I'm currently, it doesn't make any difference. You can always hear the thunder noises. Sometimes they are more distant, sometimes they are like more noticeable, but they are always here. And maybe Russians just got a bit more cheered by that, whatever whatever that was happened in the White House. Of course, that was honey for their ears, but for Ukrainian people, that hasn't changed a lot. We are still fighting. We are still living through that. We are not going to just give up.
The point is that it doesn't make much difference for you because you're being under constant attack up where you are, because you've moved right up into the Donetsk area. You said that how close are you to the front?
It's something around 26 kilometers, just because the front line is not even, and the nearest part is like 26 kilometers from me.
And maybe you can explain to folks why you decided to move so close to the fighting.
It's always about love. So I've been dating my boyfriend for 3 years, and he's been serving in military since 2019, before the big war started. He used to serve in what's called anti-terrorist operation, and after the big scale invasion happened, he still served in the military. So he's been to some tough places and he got injured, and thanks God he made it out of the injury. And after that, I just decided that there may be a day that I will lose him, basically, without experiencing like basic people stuff, like no dates, no flowers, no chocolates and stuff. And I just decided that even if I die tomorrow, I will die happy and with the person I love beside me. And like thinking about death is actually something that's haunting me every day. Like every night before I go to sleep, I think, well, will it land on me? Will it land on the building next to me? And it's the effect on your mind is just insane.
Tell me about just living day to day there, with the missiles, the glide bombs coming in all the time.
It's really scary, and you never get used to it. Basically, it's like sometimes you hear a distant thunder, sometimes you hear like your ceiling is vibrating, and sometimes it's just you don't know where to run, because there's nowhere you can actually hide from a rocket, and there's no point from on hiding from rockets. So it's just you sit and wait. And I have this app. We actually created so many apps to show when the air raid alert. And sometimes, like, there are days when it's just going off and
You have a
going.
device on your wrist, you say, to
Yeah. It's just Apple Watch.
Okay.
And it has notifications, like from different apps, and from that apps that shows your air raid alert. It also gives me notifications, and sometimes it just goes vibrating and vibrating and vibrating, and sometimes it shows that the risk of being attacked is more than usual. So you know that you have to go to some places where there are two walls between you and the window, because it may break and you may get injured from the glass. So I just go grab my cats and we go to the corridor and hide.
For you, this war didn't begin 3 years ago. Here in North America, people have this thing in their heads where the propaganda is being fed to us, where people think this war started like 3 years ago. But the truth is, it started much longer ago, about 10 or 11 years ago. Can you explain to people how that has transpired and what that has meant for you?
So actually, it happened from Maidan, which took place in 2014. I was 15 at that time. I remember realizing that that was wrong. We have to fight, because I just realized that something is going on. And I don't remember my childhood. Like, the memory does a weird thing, because you don't remember times without a war, and it seems like it's been forever. I'm 25, and it's like 10 years already. So
Yeah, so you were like 15 years old when the Maidan protests happened, which erupted because Ukraine was in a crisis, and people had decided that you wanted to join and trade more with the European Union, and Vladimir Putin didn't want that to happen. And then your president of the time, Viktor Yanukovych, and correct me if I'm wrong about any of this, but Viktor Yanukovych promised that he would sign the documents so that Ukraine could trade more, just trade goods and services, right? More with Europe, to raise the standard of living and help Ukraine get out of its debt. And then he didn't do that, which he refused in the end, which resulted in protests. And then he fled the country and went to Russia, because that revealed that he was actually a pro-Russian, essentially puppet president of Vladimir Putin. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, 100% true. I'm actually so happy to see that. Like, I scroll through TikTok and I get lots of American videos, and I'm so happy to see that people are realizing that, like, the actual truth, what actually was going on during all that time. I'm so happy that you basically started to open your eyes and see the real things, because we all live through that. We all know that that was basically true. That was it. And really so happy that you also know that 100% true, basically what you just said.
Yes, and 10, 11 years ago, people here were not paying any attention to Ukraine. And then Vladimir Putin went in and annexed Crimea, which was part of Ukraine. And also you had this separatist movement up in your area where you're living now, around the Donetsk and Donbass region. And again, correct me if I'm wrong about any of this, but the separatists were armed by the Russians, and they actually sent Russian troops in there without insignias on their uniforms. They called them Little Green Men, and they really started essentially a civil war up there, and used. Am I wrong about any of this? Because please correct me.
that wasn't a civil war because
Right.
we found many evidence that from the first place Russians came into Ukraine, and separatists was just a part of propaganda to show that, oh well, Donetsk region and Luhansk region people just wanted to join Russia, and separatists are like they are thought to be Ukrainian people who were against that, but that's just a part of propaganda to, to show that what happened in Donetsk region in 2014 was Ukrainian people's decision to become a
So
separate countries,
right.
separate republics.
So what's and so maybe the better way to explain it is it was a sort of a fake civil war because Russia invaded that part of the country where you had a larger Russian-speaking population. See, the narrative over here, the information they're feeding to us is that the Ukrainian government just started to shell, to bomb Russian-speaking populations up there for, quote, no reason. And people kind of just leave it at that, but it's not true. It's because you had armed separatists armed by Russia and Russian soldiers in that area, and Russia was saying, "Oh no, we didn't send any soldiers in there." But later we learned that they actually did, and it was Russian soldiers from the very beginning. Is that again accurate, or am I off base?
Yeah. So it was just playing a dirty game to show things that are not true, for all the world to think that, oh well, just people just wanted to separate their country and create separate republics, but it was not true. And actually, the reason why Donetsk and Luhansk regions are seemed to be Russian-speaking regions is quite cynic, because during the USSR times, Donetsk and Luhansk regions were actually totally Ukrainian-speaking regions, and I remember seeing photos of people in vyshyvanka, in Ukrainian traditional clothes, and they were just killed during the Holodomor, the genocide that was performed multiple times on there were 2 Holodomors, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not a historian.
In the 1930s, and Joseph Stalin,
Yeah.
and they confiscated the grain from the Ukrainian farmers, took it all,
Yeah.
and left them nothing, and there was a huge famine because he just confiscated all of the fruits of their labor, all of the grain that the farmers produced. He just stole it, took it, sold it on the open market to capitalize his industrial revolution, and impoverished the people of Ukraine. He basically raped the land and raped the farmers and stole everything that they had and the people. And as a result, there was a huge famine that resulted in millions of deaths.
Yeah, and these people were substituted with people deported from Russia. So basically, people from Russia were taken here. They lived their life. Of course, they were Russian language speakers, as lots of other Ukrainians. We are all bilingual. Everybody in Ukraine speaks Russian. So there's absolutely no reason for us to be mad to people who speaks Russian, especially that time. Now, of course, that's weird if you want to speak Russian, but still, it's people's choice, and we are not going to go and shoot those people, because that's just not humane. We are still one nation. I speak 4 languages. That doesn't change anything. So that was just a made up reason to start everything, basically.
So here people keep saying, why don't, it's Ukraine's fault. Ukraine started the war. And I'm having trouble wrapping my head around that. They also say Vladimir Putin invaded because because Ukraine wanted to join NATO. But these
That's
arguments in
none
my
of
mind
Vladimir
just
Putin business. What we wanted to join, that's none of his business. We are a separate, independent country. Who's Vladimir Putin? He is a president of a separate country, and why do we have to do something that he wants, or why do we have not to do something that he doesn't want? That's the same if Ukraine tells, okay, America, don't choose Trump for president, and if you do, then what? Ukraine cannot tell anyone to do anything, the same as Russia. And how it's our fault if our land is occupied, if our people, if we stop fighting, we will just lose our country, we will get occupied, and that's it. If Russia stops fighting, everything stops. So I don't see how it's our fault, and I don't see how, because like some people may say, just stop shooting, just cease fire. If we stop shooting, this straight up means that we kill ourselves. That's it. If we stop fighting, this means we will stop living as a nation, as a country, as human beings. We will not survive. Because for myself, I'm a musician, I'm a nationalist, I love my country, I'm ready to fight. My father is in military, my boyfriend is in military. If I stop fighting myself, if I just okay, Russia, come take me, they will kill me instantly. Just because I have tattoos, I'm a Ukrainian speaking person, I'm a musician, I write my music in Ukrainian language, which is also a crime. All of my messages in social medias, they are pro-Ukrainian. If I stop fighting, I will not live. So that's not an option for us. For Putin, if he stops fighting, he just grabs his military, goes back home. Nothing happens. There will be peace, but not for us. That's crucial. What everybody has to understand. If we stop fighting, we will stop living. That's all. Everything in me wants to scream about that. That's really all the message.
So if we get if the war just stops, if Ukraine just capitulates, if you just surrender, we can see from what has happened through the war that Russia will roll in there with tanks. They'll roll into Kyiv, they'll roll into the cities, the towns, and they'll start to denazify Ukraine, and they'll come to you because they'll accuse you of being a Nazi, and which is to say that you're a nationalist because you love your country.
Yeah.
And they will kill you. Is that pretty much what's going to happen?
Yeah. You are absolutely correct not to confuse nationalist with Nazi, because these are different. Nationalist just loves their country and they just want to do everything to save its sovereignty, culture, and traditions. And Nazi wants to kill everyone else but their nation, which basically something that happens with Russians now. They are trying to kill Ukrainians just because we are Ukrainians. They've been trying to erase our cultures basically for all their all the time, all the wars between Russia and Ukraine. They haven't just started 3 years ago, even not 10 years ago. It's been going on forever.
Yes. That's really the key, right? Because words are important, and some people twist words, change the meanings of words, use words to mean different things. And in this case, the word Nazi is being used, I think, in a very broad sense by the Russians to include anybody that is standing up to them and anybody that is pro-Ukraine. Nationalists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nationalists equals Nazi in this particular conflict. Is that in the eyes of Russia? Is that a
Yeah.
fair assessment?
Yeah. They told, like, they had multiple reasons for invading us, and destroying Nazis was like the one of numerous ones. And basically, people who love their country, we just want to live peacefully. We just want to do our thing. We want to evolve as a country, as a nation, and they just want us to do that because we are a strong nation with a strong history and culture, and they just don't want us to exist. And they've been trying to erase our culture and nation and even language throughout all the time, basically.
Yes, I know that there was some focus on the destruction of even libraries that people were concerned about. And when I saw some videos coming out with people showing that how concerned they were about the destruction of libraries, I thought, why are they, this was earlier on in the conflict, and I thought, why are we seeing these videos about libraries and books? And then I realized that it's because you're trying to preserve your culture. Books are an integral part of that, an important part. Books, language, culture. That's what is also at stake here. You're trying to prevent a cultural genocide. Yes?
Pretty much it. So many museums were harmed and so many artworks were inevitably destroyed just because it's our cultures. For example, the Museum of Maria Primachenko, the famous artist who painted like I think you can Google it and you will see her works are really remarkable for its own style, and some of them are inevitably destroyed. They are gone forever.
Tell me a little bit more about your boyfriend, and then we'll learn. Well, why don't you tell me about your father first, because we haven't heard at all about him, and you say that he's in the military too?
Yeah, he's serving. Well, he went to as a volunteer, basically when it started on 24th of February 2022, he went straight up to the military office. They didn't have his record, so he had to sneak to the medical. He had to ask them to take him because he's quite old. He has some health issues, but he wanted to fight because it's kind of a family thing. We are striving for sorry, lost my word. We're striving for truth, I would say. So he's been serving for this entire time, for since the full-scale invasion happened, and he's actually he's not a military man. He's never he served his time in military when he needed to back in Soviet Union times, and after that he just worked peacefully. He's forgot the word, but he makes some things from wood, like chairs, carpenter. He's a carpenter. So when he went to military, he just found his way by making some things for military. Like he does what he knows how to do. So he usually goes home, takes some wood, takes some tools, and he makes some important things for the military, for the guys who actually fight. So he doesn't fight because he can't. If he goes to the front line, he can't even wear military shoes because he has issues with his feet, but still he wants to add his part. And I think that's a great example how everyone is doing what they can do. Even if you can't fight, if you cannot hold a gun, you can hold a tool that you can you know how to use, and you can be useful for the military, for the people who's actually fighting, by doing what you can do the best. So he's serving like a few kilometers away from me, so we tend to see each other even more frequently than my mom sees him, because he comes to us to visit. He has his own van he uses to transport some goods from the center of Ukraine. And yeah, so
you must worry about him constantly as you do your boyfriend. And tell us a little bit more about him, about your boyfriend.
Yeah, we've been dating for 3 years. I think I've mentioned it. And for all this time, we haven't lived together. We haven't had any dates, any like normal people's stuff. We haven't had dates, flowers, chocolates. We started speaking in the internet. He was already serving at that moment. It was in 2021, I think. It was already a war in the east of Ukraine, here where I am. Actually, in this city where I am, people, invaders came here. They tried to occupy this city too, but they just resisted. So the front line just shifted a bit to the east. And my boyfriend was actually injured during being in the front line, doing I'm not sure how to call that. So he was shot, and his vein, not sure how. So basically, a major vein in his body was injured, and he lost like a liter of blood, which was really critical. And I remember calling him. He was not supposed to be reachable. He was supposed to be there, and I knew that he was not supposed to be like called. But my mom, for some reason, wanted to call him, and he actually took the call, and he was like, I think you can tell he was drunk or something. His voice was like crackling and stuff, and he was like, oh no. And I heard that sound, that beep, beep, beep. And I have goosebumps right now, because my memory just didn't want to remember that, and calling this is weird. So he said, oh, I'm okay now. I was shot. That's fine. And my hand started to shake. I remember I cried for like a minute. And then I came to my room. I grabbed a bag. I started gathering some stuff. And the next day I was in the hospital with him. And actually, I don't know how, but I managed to be in every hospital that he was in, and his recovery took about 1.5 years. And I've been to every hospital that he was recovering in. And I remember I spent the night in the first hospital that he was in. It was, I don't know how to explain that experience. That was just like a fever dream. He was in the room with other military people, and also there was a person who was on the gas station when something, I don't remember, maybe a rocket, something dropped on the gas station, and that person was without legs. So he was next to his bed. So that was just cruel because you try to live your life. You try not to think about war, because if you think about war every day, you just get insane. You just go nuts, crazy, and go to the facilities that can work with that. So you just try to live your life, and then you just go to this hospital and see like how it looks like for these people, and it's like waking up for that dream. So that was crazy. And after that I just decided that even I don't care what happens. I want to live. I want to experience my life, and to live with the person who I love, because I just realized that at some point I can lose this opportunity, because and I don't want to lose my life to those people. No, I will live my life 100%, even if I die because of that.
How often do you get to see your boyfriend?
Every day. That's I'm so happy to see him every day, just because he was injured. He cannot fight anymore, but he serves in an orchestra. Of course, they don't play instruments, but they still can do some work. And he's lucky enough to come home for those times when he does not serve, when he does not do the tasks that he's supposed to do. So we get to see each other every day. And I'm so lucky. I realize that I'm so lucky because many women do not have this opportunity. My mom doesn't see my dad for months. For we in our bathroom we have tiles, and my mom writes dates from 1st July 2022 to 13th July 2022. We have so many dates. We are running out of room basically for those dates. These are the dates when dad comes home. She wants to remember those times. He's also lucky enough to be able to go home for so many times, just because he does some tasks that require him to do so. But still, we are really lucky to have those people home for numerous of times, because some people just get to see their relatives, their friends, their loved ones twice a year.
Just to get off topic there a little bit, something kind of caught my attention 2 days ago when I was researching another aspect of what's going on in Ukraine. And I'd heard this before, but it just, during the invasion of Russia in 2014 in the Donetsk region, they renamed a couple of those regions. Well, they started to rename them People's Republics. And there are things going on over here in Canada that mirror kind of the early days that led to the war in Ukraine. Can you explain to people the history of what happened with that, the naming of the People's Republics, and do you have any idea why they chose to call them People's Republics? There's got to be a political or even a propaganda reason behind that. Can you shed any light on that for me? And I don't mean to come at you kind of unexpectedly with this, but do you have any idea? Can you help me with this at all?
So I'm not an expert and I'm not a historian, but and I was small during that time, so I may be mistaken. But they could not add those territories to Russia because it would be too obvious. So back at the time when those territories were invaded, those green peoples
the little
were
green men, the Russian soldiers.
yeah. They were sent here to pretend to be Ukrainians who wanted to be independent from Ukraine, who were oppressed by us, and there was a thing called referendum. Not sure if that's a word for
It
English.
is. Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah.
So they decided to have this referendum for people to vote as, whether you want to be a part of Ukraine or you want to be independent. And of course, the results of this referendum were fabricated to vote like 110% that people of Luhansk and Donetsk region want to be independent from Ukraine, want to be not oppressed by us. So they fabricated that, and they.
I do remember that like 98% voted in favor here, and in another region, like 97%. I know. Yes. Please continue. Yeah.
Yeah. So and they just told, okay, we are independent now. We are Luhansk national, like LNR and DNR in our language. Not sure how to, but don't care. These are not legit. These are not recognized by, or maybe they are recognized like by two countries.
Russia recognizes them,
Russia,
but
for
other
sure.
than that, it's not. They are not. They were never recognized internationally, and yeah, they just were not recognized on the world stage at all. Other countries did not recognize it.
Yeah, because it was not legally held in by no means. It was illegal at first place. So.
And when I see what caught me was the use of the word "people's republics." It seemed to have a connection back to the old Soviet era. The choice of the words "people's republics," which we see in many communist countries, use of those names, "people's republics," like People's Republic of China. The Russia is a republic, but I appreciate you clarifying the history on it for us. It helps me make sense of things over here and sheds new light actually on what's happening here in Canada, where today we seem to be a country facing a similar crisis because we have separatist movements being promoted in Canada as well at a time when our national sovereignty is at threat. So what's going on in Ukraine, as I say, is almost, yeah.
Maybe the same outcome for you. I'm so sorry for you guys. I really hope that you don't end up in it. We have to fight. If we have to stand and fight, because silence is something that kills basically. Everybody has to stand up and tell everybody that that's not okay. It's quite a pattern.
It is.
If you see,
President Trump said when your president Vladimir Zelensky was in the White House and he ambushed him, in my view, that it takes two to tango or to fight, and I've always thought that is an exercise in misdirection, that it's not true. It doesn't always take two. It really only takes one to start a war, and one person could end a war by going home when they invade another country, and sometimes even if you have, it doesn't take two. It takes one to start it. One could end it by just going home. But you don't really have a choice because you are home.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
We would never make a choice to be in war. We were actually forced to fight, and that's 100% true. If you want to stop this war, please go get Putin and tell him to stop. That's the only way, because once again, if we stop fighting, that's simple, and the Putin wins, because I actually watched the whole thing in that Oval Office. That was painful. But I managed to do that. And the ceasefire won't work because if we stop the fire, we are sure that they will not stop the fire. We've seen that too many times from 2014. We already had ceasefires, and we couldn't fight back. Actually, we signed the paper that did not allow us to fight back. But there was fire from their end, and if we signed this ceasefire, we would not be able to fight back, and this means that that's it. So it takes one. You're right. They have to stop it because we have never chose this. It's not our choice, and if we could have this choice, we would never choose that, because we had our plans. We wanted to build a strong nation that Europe oriented. We wanted to build our culture because for so many years it's been they were trying to destroy our culture and just erase that from the earth. We were trying to build our own future, and if we could choose, we would do that instead of this, because our children are not having their childhood. Our people are dying, and that's it's just not. This should not happen. We live on Earth. Like, that's just a sphere in the space, and what a dumb thing to go and kill people when you have so many opportunities, and this Earth can just fall at any minute, and you choose to do that instead of living your life. That's just so unfair that we have to do that.
Have you lost friends or family?
Unfortunately, I think everyone lost something or someone in this war, that it's too long. I had a friend, and he actually died in 2022, and he was never buried. So his family doesn't even have a place to come and remember him. He's still in the south, in the east. Sorry, he's still there. They couldn't retrieve his body and return to home where he belonged. So actually, they have a memory banner. We have a lot of them. I actually have a video clip for you if you want to include that in your podcast. We have alleys where lots of big photos with those people, with their names, with their small stories and where they died. And there are just so many of them that you cannot even find a place for every of them. And for some families, it's the only place where they can go and lay some flowers, because they don't have a grave. Their body is not properly buried. They just lay where they died, and that's horrible. That's how it is.
And President Trump says that he's having trouble with Ukraine because it's like you don't want peace, or that Zelensky doesn't want peace. Why do you keep fighting?
Oh, we want peace so bad. We will fight till the end. We keep fighting just because we want peace, and otherwise there will be no peace if we stop fighting.
People, I think, will be confused by that. I understand what you're saying, but people will say, well, how, if you want peace, why do you keep fighting? It's an upside down, they're turning it upside down so that people get confused. The point is, if you stop fighting, the Russians will come and they will kill you.
Yes, just imagine a school bully, and this bully starts to fight you, and if you don't fight back, he will just, I don't know, kill you, those bullies. And if you fight back, you have a chance to survive. But if you don't fight back, there is no chance.
Yes, because they're already in your country. They're in your home. They're already attacking you. You're under attack. You're defending yourself. You're not attacking them. You're trying to get them to stop, but they won't stop. So it continues and it continues. And when you sign the ceasefire, you sign the piece of paper, you stop fighting, and then they've continued to attack. And as your president has shown 35 different times now, 35 times you've signed agreements to stop fighting, and Russia has broken it 35 times.
We've signed a ceasefire once, like not 35 times, not that I remember.
I mischaracterized that. There were agreements that were broken, like different portions of agreements 35 times.
They were broken, but I'm not sure if that's true, because they were broken like every day for like a few times after we signed the ceasefire during the anti-terrorist operation. It was broken like every day, few times a day. And we were listening to the news. Russia just broke ceasefire again, and to the weather news. It was like that. It was just like ABC, and Russia breaks ceasefire just because they can, and they always deny it. No, it's Ukraine. It's Ukraine who's fighting, who's shelling bombs for Ukrainian people, and some people still believe that it was us.
I don't know how to combat those kinds of lies, and they're running rampant over here. I think talking to you today may help. I'm hoping that it does. It's a very difficult thing, because over here for people, it's like watching a television show because it just comes through a video screen. But for you, it's very, very real. How does the rest of your family cope with this? Your mom, do you have brothers, sisters, relatives?
Yeah, my mom lives in the center of the city. In the center of Ukraine, Poltava, which is. It seemed to be more or less safe, but the shellings came here as well. So recently, block of flats were shelled, and the entire part of that building was destroyed, and many people died. It was Saturday morning, so just block of flats with civil people, and she tries not to think about it. She's pretty much always nervous because she doesn't know what happens next to me or my father. She tries not to think about it, but again, it's really hard. Sometimes you live your regular life because people are interesting creatures that get used pretty much to everything. If you think about it, because you've never lived in this, you may think that that's horrible thing, and it is. But our brains are so crooked and so messed up that if like it didn't destroy my windows, or if I didn't hear any really loud noises that made my ceiling vibrate, it was a wonderful day. And that's something that you learn how to live with. And I'm sure that after this war overs, with our victory, we will have to learn to live without war, and I think it would be really pleasant. And my brother doesn't serve. He is working as a criminal specialist. He basically researches evidence for crimes. He's a criminal expert, I would say. So it's considered a critical infrastructure. So he cannot be held to the military, But if he wants to, he can join. For now, mom says that she will not survive if he goes to the military as well. So he stands. They live together now because we are worried for mom. If she stays alone, it would be harsh on her. So they keep together. We have lots of cats, lots of homeless cats actually. They just came to us and decided that we're a good place to live, and we decided not to argue. And they try to live their best, because who knows for how long this will take, for how more long. And you have to live your life, because at the end of the day it may end pretty unexpectedly. And it's like stoicism. I'm not sure how to refer to that. To stoic philosophy, where you just learn to live.
The world needs more people like you taking care of homeless cats. The world needs more people like you so that we have more people taking care of those who can't take care of themselves. The strong need to help those who are in need. That's what would make the world a better place. What do you want for the future? Do you want a family? What would you like to have happen? And it seems like you're pretty determined to live your life on your terms, regardless of this conflict.
I don't know about family, because during the war, I cannot just bring a new life into this world. It's quite messed up at the moment. So for the future, I only see our victory and peace. That's only thing that I want. Basically, nothing more. And after that, we can speak about endless opportunities of family, travel, and stuff. But for now, this war has to be stopped, and not by us.
All you want is your freedom and your country.
Yeah, it's always been like that.
Yaryna, is there anything else you would like to add today or think that we might have missed?
I would just say thank you for an opportunity to be the one of the million voices of us. Each of our stories are unique, tragic at some point, but it's showing. I hope to show that even in the darkest time, there is light, and you have to be this light sometimes. So I have hope in American people, in Canada people, because I see so many videos of support and kind words. I believe in Europe. I believe that it will be ended, and we will keep living. We will try to rebuild our country. We will try to rebuild our lives, our future. We will get it back, because for now, our lives are stolen. Nobody lives the way they would like to at the moment. Someone is fighting their life. Someone is trying to live through that, and somebody's unfortunately giving their life to our freedom. And we cannot sacrifice that. We cannot just give up. That's not the point. Not the case for us.
Yaryna, you keep taking care of those homeless cats. Much love from Canada. I know that our country is still with you. Thank you for doing this today.
Thank you.